We are going to be creating a submission form in Spring Boot. And to do this, it is basically that we're taking some user input and then we are going to print it out again. But this is in like a web application like this. So we view customer details. This is all our output, and our input is going to look something like this. So it's gonna just submit this, and then it's going to be like the following right here. So that's what we're going to make in this. It's pretty cool. So when we make our file, it's going to be a new file here. We want to do other. It's going to be a Spring Boot application. We're going to make a Spring Boot starter project. Our dependencies are going to be Jersey, Spring Data, JPA, Spring Web, and then Spring Web Services, and also H2 database. So it's going to be these right here. These are what we're using. With those in mind, we are going to have our submissions form application.java. So this is basically going to be our starter right here. We're going to have all these imported, but first, before we import anything, because these should import on their own, if we hover over and select what we need to import, we are going to have this code for when we are making a Spring application builder. So this is like standard. We have our add override, and this is going to be in a protected statement. You can shift this over. We're just returning the application.sources, submit application files.class. We have this component scan up here, can't forget that. That basically scans all components and makes sure everything runs. We have a public static void main, and then we have spring application.run, where we are going to run this right here. Next is going to be our customer class. We're not going to really use this customers.java class because we've actually enhanced this through the other files that we have. This was just in the code that this video is based off of. It's in the description below the like button, not my video, but someone else's that goes over a whole course for Spring Boot application. This is just my take on it and my notes for it. So we have all of this right here, and this is basically a getter and setters for our IDs, name and email, and then we're just printing it out with a toString method right here. So we just make this a little bit more exciting, a little bit more springy. So the first thing that we're going to want to make is a add customer details.jsp file. So inside of our web pages, we are going to make a new folder. That's going to be the pages. Then we're going to want to add our customer details and our view customer details right here. So again, customers.java can be deleted. We don't really need that. So we have these JSP files in here. This one that we're going to be in is where we're getting the user information. The view customer details is where we're going to be outputting it. So for this one, we have all this as like standard. I just put the title as computer engineering so we know what we're doing here, but we can replace it with like add customer details. So inside of here we have form, our method is post, and action is details. That's what we're doing inside of here. We have input customer ID, so this is going to be printed, and then we have the input type text. So if we look at what this should look like this, input customer ID. We have a 1 here. This is our input type, and it's going to store this in our CID, the name CID. We have enter customer name. This one is going to be like the name we input it in here, and it gets stored in CNAME. And then we have enter customer email, and so we enter the customer email right here, and then we are just going to have a submit. So we have an input type submit. Note how this is saying that the input type is going to be a text, so we're basically having a text here, all this stuff. And then we are going to have this submit. So the type is submit, and then the value is submit. The actual value is what we are putting out right here. And then we're going to close our form, then we close our body, and we close our HTML. So all of this has to be, it's going to start with a form, and then it's going to end with a form. Similar for our customers right here. So this is just printing out inside of here without this arrow right here because I accidentally made a mistake earlier. But we have view customer details like this. And then these different H's are basically, we're printing out on a new line with these slashes. We can see that for like this one, we don't have those, and it's going to print all on the same line. So this one we have slashes, and we print on a new line for each one. So we have our customer ID is 1. We have our customer name, which is Brandon, and then our customer email, which is this right here. Notice how we have the $sign, so this is like getting the command right here, or getting what we've stored. It's going to be our CID, our CNAME, and then the C email. So we have them all here. And next we have our form controller. So we have our JSP files right here. Again, we don't really care about the customer. The submissions application is just to run everything. The form is to control our other JSP files. So this is controlling the JSP files. We've done our JSP, and now we're controlling it inside of here. So we're going to come back to this because we have to configure our submissions forms.pom or /pom.xml. We're going to need this, and we've gone over this before. This is when we need to create a web dependency. When we created a web dependency last time, we used Jasper dependency, and so we're using it again here. That video can be found in the description, link below the like button. It's somewhere in there where we talk about how to get it, and the link to the version I'm using will also be in the description below the like button for this specific version. And you can find the specific version by just going into your Maven dependencies and then scrolling all the way down till you get to your Tomcat. I'm using 9.0.63.jar. So that's what we're going to be using here. So we copy that and we paste that onto here. So now that the POM XML file is completed, we're going to edit our server port. That's going to be in our SRC main resources, application properties. So we have server.port, we're setting it to 8084. We have our Spring MVC view prefix, and this is pages. And this is for our web application. So we are getting this prefix part, the pages part, and then we have our suffix, which is the file inside of it, which is our JSP. So now that that's done, we are going to look at the final piece of our puzzle, which is our controller. So we're calling this form controller. So we have our @controller. Basically, we're saying this is a controller. Remember, like this one is a Spring Boot application, and we have our component scan here. So each of them have their own separate things. This is a controller right here because it controls the program. We have our @get mapping. So this is for our URL. When we type this in, like if we have these slashes just to make it a comment, we have our local host, and then we have our server port. So like 8084, I think it was for this example. And then we are going to have a slash right here for the next part. And then if we want to do this, we are going to do add. So that's this method right here. We have our @get mapping, and then it's going to call this right here. So we are just going to return our add customer details, and then we just called it return the add customer details. That's just the name of the method. It's returning a type string, and this is really just the JSP file. Now note, we don't put .jsp in our return. We just have add customer details right here. So it's going to return this. And so if we wanted to, we can run this. That would be like this button or like this button. To actually run it from like scratch, we would go to run as and then Spring Boot application. So that's how we would want to do that. And to set up the Spring Boot, that's the first video in the playlist link below the like button. So we can do our local host 8084, and then we're going to do add. Now this is where we get all of this right here, and this is from our add customer details.jsp right here. So looking back at our form controller, we've done this, and after we do this, because remember all of this is contained in our add customer details right here. We have our input and our value, so the type is submit. We're going to be submitting once we're done with this. So let's just input right here. Let's do like 789, and then our customer name will be computer engineering, and our customer email is just going to be computerengineering@gmail.com. So after we press submit, we're going to go onto our post mapping, which is the details part. So pressing submit, we have our post mapping details where we view the customer details. So inside of here we have parameters. We're requesting the param CID, and this is our string CID. Requesting the param CNAME, string CNAME, requesting the param CEmail, string CEmail. And so what this is doing is we can see that we are, once we get this input, we're storing it inside of here. So we said name is equal to CID, name is equal to CNAME, name is equal to CEmail. So basically whatever if I were to duplicate this tab, if we go back to our add, whatever we pass in for our CID and our name and the email, it's going to get stored in each one of these. And so what our form is doing inside of here for the details, it's requesting all of these variables. So it's getting them inside of here, and it's also making an instance of our model map. So model map, and it's called lowercase m and then uppercase M model map. And then inside of here, we're going to place these right here. So we do model map.put, where we put our CID as a CID, and the CNAME as CNAME, CEmail as our CEmail. So this is like the object, I believe, and then this is the actual name of it. And then we're going to want to return the view customer details. So this is just putting this all inside of here. And then our view customer details, you can see it's very similar to this in our details, localhost 84/details. And inside of here, we have our view customer details, details as submitted as follows. We have our customer ID and then the $ with the braces. We're going to print the actual part out because we called it and we stored it and then we passed it there. So that's going to be it for our form controller. That's all that we have. Just note that after we do this get mapping, then we have this post mapping, So it automatically will run it right afterwards. So if we do this add, we just press submit, it's going to take us here right away. So we've done this, and it's now on our web page. Well, what if we want to store this? That's going to be in the next video, in the playlist link below the like button, where we connect web application to a database.